People are willing to endure the pain, the sacrifice, the due diligence to be successful.
Well. Currently 5:44 in the morning right now. Instead of hauling it in and calling it a night, I figured this was the perfect setting, perfect time, and really fitting environment to talk about this team, talk about some of the things, and my final preview for the Chicago Bears in 2023. Now, I understand we're not going anywhere, but when I say final preview, that's me saying that from now on, we're getting closer to training camp. From now on, we're going to be talking about real football. We're going to be talking about actual players making plays with the pads on. This is not a pajama party. This is not a play party anymore. So before we get into that, before we get closer into that time, preseason, training camp, all of these things coming up, a lot on the horizon, a lot of content ideas, I want to give my final preview. Now, I apologize in advance if I give you some takes, which I've already given you, because we look at some of these players and some of these things are consistent with what I've thought and what I have done in film breakdowns. So, get ready for the show. Kick in, tune in for the ride, learn about your favorite team some more, because I know you guys, Chicago Bears fans, you stay on it. And before I get into this, speaking to that point, I want to say from a Steelers fan to Chicago Bears fan nation, thank you guys. Starting from this channel, starting it, building from the ground up, not even knowing what I'm doing, what I wanted to do when I got into this whole entire thing. But you guys, out of all the fan bases, whether it be NBA with the Sacramento Kings, Los Angeles Clippers, Detroit Lions, Pittsburgh Steelers themselves, Seattle Seahawks, you guys have shown up and shown out for this young guy and helping me realize my dream and grow this channel. So for that, I'm always going to be thankful, and I want to give a sincere thanks. But now we want to start off with this team, and starting off with the offense as usual. Matt Eberflus, Ryan Poles, Luke Getsy, what's in mind, what's in store for this team? And I think it's a lot of things to be excited about. Now, in the OTA sessions, in the minicamp, Justin Fields, DJ Moore. That's the biggest connection. I've said it, and you guys know. I want you to say it with me because you know it's coming. For Josh Allen, it was Stephon Diggs. For Jalen Hurts, it was A.J. Brown. For Justin Fields, can it be DJ Moore? And I think the more I think about it, and the more I look at this team and look at all the things I think about, I think it can be. I truly look at that because we're coming fresh off of a week where I broke down Justin Fields' film, and we looked at that. We talk about a couple of things in his game, seeing the read, knowing we got it, boom, trusting it, going with that read. We have the arm to make any throw that we want to make. So we have the arm to do that. We have the athleticism to escape out of the pocket, and also some other things with the mechanics, working on our foot, working on having a wide base. We don't want to have as wide of a base. We want to get the ball out quicker, and having that elongated motion where he's bringing the elbow out instead of strictly bringing it up. So some of the things he can quickly tweak, but I think with what he's doing now, I haven't seen much as far as the arm motion when he's throwing the football, but I do like it, and I do think he's got to this point with it. So it's not about the biggest thing for me, making them decisions. You see it, go get it, Justin. So with that being said, DJ Moore is going to bring a lot to this team. Now, look at DJ Moore, and I think that some people are looking and thinking, who's going to be the guy? And that's not even particularly in DJ Moore, because we have some questions about DJ Moore. Some people have questions about DJ Moore. I don't question it. I think that he can be a number one clear cut. Now, beyond that, we look at Darnell Mooney. We look at Chase Claypool. And I think worst case scenario, one of those two guys will show themselves to be a very solid complementary number two receiver. But let's talk about DJ Moore some more, because we talk about this connection with DJ Moore, with Justin Fields, and I think the more I think about it, the more that I look at this team, there's a lot of good things that I think could come out of this, because I look at the quarterbacks that DJ Moore has played with. He doesn't have the courtesy of a Patrick Mahomes. He doesn't have the courtesy of a Joe Burrow, of a Josh Allen, of even a Kirk Cousins. He hasn't had above average quarterback play for an extended period of time. So now with Justin Fields trying to be a guy who's taking that next step, he can help him, and also DJ Moore can help Justin Fields. So it's really a working connection here. And I think that with that being said, the real question is who's going to be the guy. And that's Darnell Mooney, Tyler Scott, Pettis, Claypool. We're looking for that number two, the guy who's going to come out of nowhere and say, okay, we need you. And I think that worst case scenario for me, it's going to be when I look at it, I think Darnell Mooney has the edge over at Chase Claypool. Now, I understand you gave up the second round pick for Chase Claypool, but I just love Darnell Mooney from a route running standpoint, from what he can do as a separator and really crisping that, working on his hands some more, getting back from that injury. So I think it's really the arrows pointing up for him. But with Chase Claypool, I mean, we talk about physical traits. He doesn't scream physical. Nobody screams physical traits more than Chase Claypool. Size, strength, speed. He's packaged all of that into a body, into a player. So one of these guys is going to be either Mooney or Claypool, and I'm looking very heavily. Training camp's going to tell a lot. Now, understand, with Mooney coming off of that injury, he's not going to be as impactful as we want to see in training camp, and understanding that, but he's going to be full go by the season start, I believe. I would hope so. And Chase Claypool, he's also nursing some minor things, but I think he will be full go in training camp, working to get back for that. So a very interesting receiver room. I mean, St. Brown, a guy who made some plays last year, but, by no means was he really that guy, but I think he can push to be a good 3 or 4 in this scheme. Tyler Scott, another burnout of Cincinnati. And beyond that, it's really some guys who are trying to push, trying to make the roster, be some special team guys. But I look at this first 3 and that second 3, and I think those guys are kind of locks, if I want to say that about the receiver room. Now, talking about the quarterback, Justin Fields, we know what he brings to the run game, and I don't want to see as much of that this year. I'm going to be honest, because I'm not going to say that they don't need to do it. I'm not going to say that it won't help the offense. I'm just going to say that they should be able to lean on their passing in certain situations. In 3rd and 5, we shouldn't have to run read option. We shouldn't have to run quarterback wrap. We can go get it with Justin in the short to intermediate. That's kind of the development, up in that completion percentage, being more consistent. But when we talk about this run game, we look at a Deonta Foreman. He was a madman in that second half of the season for the Carolina Panthers. Khalil Herbert, pretty solid back for the Chicago Bears, working along with Montgomery. Roschon Johnson, I don't have enough positive things to say about Roschon Johnson. And Travis Homer, I think that on this team, he's going to have more of an impact than some of us know. Because we look at Travis Homer, what he was for Seattle, that 3rd down back. And we look at these guys. I mean, Roschon Johnson, he can pass, bro. But as far as a receiver, I think Travis Homer may be, alongside with Herbert, that may be your 2 best receivers. Now, Deonta Foreman can catch the ball a bit, but I think Travis Homer, that's his specialty. Being 3rd down, a guy who can pass pro, a guy who can catch a screen pass, who can flare out, beat a hot read. That's that type of package we're getting. So when I talk about this, and I've said it before, I think that all 4 of these running backs can make a room for themselves, can make a role for themselves to compete. They're going to be carrying all 4 of these running backs, and I think for a necessary reason, because all 4 have the potential to play. I really like them. Now, who's going to stand out and be that guy from a running aspect? I think right now, Deonta Foreman has the edge. And it's kind of a close edge with Khalil Herbert, because I really do like Khalil Herbert. Can he be that guy, step up and show out? Playing behind David Montgomery. Was that holding him back a bit? Now getting more touches in this scheme, in this system. Something we're just going to have to see. So I'm really keeping my eyes on that. Now, talking about the tight end game, Cole Kmet. He already got paid. We know what Cole Kmet is. We know his connection. Justin Fields loves him some Cole Kmet, and rightfully so. One of the best young tight ends in the game. And I mean, I can't say enough good things about Cole Kmet. I look at his catch radius, the run after the catch, being able to block. He's a very underrated tight end. When I watch film on the Chicago Bears and I look at Cole Kmet, then I look at some of these other teams, some of these other players who get highly regarded as tight ends, Cole Kmet, keep your eyes on him. This may be a big-time season for him with these receiving threats on the perimeter. He may sneak up a seam. He may sneak into a flat some more, because we're focusing on some of these other guys. Robert Tonyan, a guy who's came. And, playing tight end for Aaron Rodgers, you can't slip up. So understanding that, a guy who can also block, who can also catch the football, get up a seam, not the athlete that Cole Kmet is, but I do think he can complement him very well. This is going to be a team who likes to run a lot of 2 tight end sets, and that's 12 personnel. So I think that the biggest thing for them is Justin Fields taking that step, because I said it, 1 step away. Now, with the offensive line, Brax, Tevin, Cody Whitehair, Nate Davis, Darnell Wright, I really like this room. And I think that with Ja'Tyre Carter, we saw that when Nate Davis was not present at OTAs, Ja'Tyre Carter was the guy who stepped in at right guard. So I feel confident in saying that we're 7 deep right now. And I'm going to name off that 7. We know the starting 5, but Jatir and Lucas Patrick, I think having them behind this starting 5 is going to be very good. Now, Tevin Jenkins, I don't think enough people are talking about his transition back to guard. Tevin Jenkins is going to be a monster at guard. I mean, watching the film on him, looking at his skill set, he's kind of geared towards being one of those tackles, those freakish athletic tackles, the freaks in college who get drafted and then they get kicked down inside. Like a Peter Skoronski, not comparing them at all as players, but I'm talking about making that transition from tackle into guard. He's that guy who can be better at guard. And I think that now with him, he has Pro Bowl potential for me. Will it all come together this season? We're going to have to see it. But I think out of this entire offensive line, him and Darnell Wright, Nate Davis being a guy who's kind of proven, who we already know is a dominant run blocker. But as far as the young guys, what we want to see, I can't be more excited than Tevin and Darnell Wright. And I think I may be more excited for Tevin. And you see that, you think I'm crazy. Watch some film on Tevin Jenkins, and it's gonna be a lot of things that you like, that you see a great finisher as a run blocker, can work on some things in pass protection, but overall like him. Braxton Jones, a guy who I saw getting better and better. Now, some of the sacks that I saw and some of the pressures that I saw, some of these route concepts by Luke Getsy, I would criticize just a tad bit, because sometimes you have receivers working one side of the field. So what are you really giving Justin? And if it's not there, he has to scramble, or he has guys in his face because it's taking so long to develop the play. The coverage is already beating the route concept. So that's the type of thing that I think added to the sacks, added to the offensive line struggles. But with this receiving core, we can make it easier for him with this run game. We know it's going to be dominant once again. That's kind of what I have for the offense. I mean, a lot of things. And like I said, I talked about my impact guys, who I'm expecting to push, who I'm watching. That's Chase Claypool, that's Roschon Johnson, that's Darnell Wright. So now we talk about what everybody wants to know. And this is the biggest thing. We look at his defense, and I've talked about this defense for a minute. I've talked about this defense in depth. This is probably why you guys are here watching this right now, because you've heard me talking about your defense, and I talk about Matt Eberflus and his coaching tree, his influencers and his influences, and how he got to this point and what he wants to do. This is your old smash mouth, traditional, nasty 4-3 defense. Now, some things I'm going to be critical about with this defense, and that's particularly on the edge with the defensive ends, but also some guys who can be pretty interesting with training camp. So that's why we have a preview like this. Starting off, Trevis Gibson. I think Trevis Gibson, if I'm being realistic right now, I see him about, even him and DeMarcus Walker, looking at both of those guys, I see them around 7 to 8 sacks. Not too high. I don't think you have a consistent double-digit sack guy right here, right now. But if you get a plethora of these guys, if they can work together, if you can stunt these guys just a bit, if you can get some blitzes, Tremaine Edmonds being a solid blitzer, did some of that at Buffalo. So we can create sacks and we can create pressure, but I don't think we have a nightmare matchup that can just go home and get it done, be a one-man wrecking crew. And to a certain extent, that's okay as far as winning, but from a team building standpoint, that may be an area of improvement which we look at. But I do like those guys. Trevis Gibson, I think he can improve. When I watched the film, when I broke down the defense, he was one of the guys who I said, in a very bad defensive line, he stood out. And beside him, who also stood out, Dominique Robinson. So I think about DeMarcus Walker, a guy who can play inside out. And I mean, he can play anywhere from 3 to a 4-eye to a 4. So the versatility that he brings from Tennessee, and now with Dominique Robinson, who can still play on the edge, DeAnthony Jones, a lot of you guys have been telling me about DeAnthony Jones. So I checked him out, and I think he has a very high upside. Now, we're going to see in training camp, is he that guy? Now, I think a lot of people are watching him, because based on what I've heard, what's been told to me, he's one of the guys coming out of Houston. People want to know, can he do some of that same thing for the Chicago Bears? And even in this season, being a young player, we're not holding you to that baby status. We want to see you make some plays, help our edge out. So that's a guy we can watch for. But, also with that, Rasheem Green, Jalen Harris, Travis Bell, really some guys on the defensive line who we want to see push. And I think now I just want to see who's going to get after, who has the effort plays, because like I said, I don't think there's a guy with the freakish athletic bend, with the freakish athletic hand techniques, with the hand fighting. it's just going to be the guy who has effort, the guy who wants to get after the quarterback every play, and the guy who's going to say, you're not passing for 300 consistently on my defense. So that's the type of guy I'm looking for off of the edge, being feisty, causing tackles, matchup nightmares. Now, getting into the interior, some pretty solid guys, and I think that this is an underrated part of the team. Now, you spent 2 big-time picks on this interior of the defensive line, and that's Zach Pickens and Gervon Dexter. But I think that even with that being said, Justin Jones, I talked about on the interior, when a person made a play, it was Justin Jones, and beyond that, it wasn't much of anything else. So that's something interesting with the team. But Andrew Billings being brought in, I really like a lot of things that they did right here. Now, these guys, we know what they are as far as athletic. We know what they are. Gervon Dexter, a guy who's been profiled even to Chris Jones from an athletic profile. We're not saying he's there yet because Chris Jones is in a league of his own, along with maybe Aaron Donald. But we look at him, what he could be. We know the pedigree coming out of high school, highly ranked recruit, didn't all pan out at Florida, but we saw some flashes there. We want to see more consistent flashes. We want to see that in training camp. Zach Pickens coming out of Carolina, also a very highly recruited guy, has the pedigree, knows what it takes to be a star in football. So I really want to know out of those two. I don't think now for years to come, these guys are both young. They could be a dynamic duo for years to come. But I think right now, Justin Jones, he's going to be a cog on this defensive line. I mean, based on the film, I can't deny that. And Andrew Billings kind of being the veteran in that room. So we want to see who's going to push. And we know they're probably going to be rotating these guys. Gervon Dexter, a guy who I think has some versatility, maybe in a bind can line up in a 4. I wouldn't try to get too creative with them, but we keep him on the inside, can be agile, athletic, penetrating, 3-tech, all of the above. Zach Pickens can line up in a variety of techniques from a 0 to a 1. So we want to see all of that. And right now, I'm banking on the upside. I want to see some of that in training camp, but I feel good about the interior, especially on the edge. Sketchy, but optimistic. Some guys, like I said, D'Anthony Jones can pop in this defensive line. So now we take it to the linebackers. And I think, for me, it's 3 names. I like Noah Sewell coming out of college. I got another guy with high pedigree, highly recruited, but has some limitations in his game. And really, for me, if he's going to get a crack at it, it's going to be at will, where he can just run and hit, do that sort of thing. Noah Sewell, watching his film, I don't want to put him in too much coverage. Not in those situations, not in man coverage, kind of hiding him in zone coverage if you can. But those types of things, he's really going to be a guy who's above average and really, shines in the run game. If that's shooting the B gap, if that's shooting the A gap, in the play side, in the cutback, all of those things, he can be the guy who can blow up a guard. I mean, he's one of the bigger off the ball linebackers we have, but he's still athletic. I mean, even at that size, I think right now, not sure exactly what his playing weight is going to be for training camp, but I know it's been times he's been at 260. 260 off ball linebacker who doesn't lack that much athleticism. So a unicorn in his own right. We talk about Jack Campbell. He's a different type of guy, different type of package. But Noah Sewell is not your typical athlete for his size profile. So, there's some upside with that. But I really like Jack Sanborn. I talked about Tremaine Edmonds being a guy who's going to run the pole in Tampa 2, can do a lot of those things, can match number 3, can blitz, can be a leader and really an impact linebacker. I think we're going to see a Pro Bowler if he puts it all together for this defense. But TJ Edwards, a guy who was top 10 in tackles, did a lot of good things for the Philadelphia Eagles, but struggled in coverage at sometimes. And with Jack Sanborn, I think that with his length, with his athleticism, I don't want to be the guy to say it, but I like Jack Sanborn more than I like TJ Edwards. I mean, that may be the hardest take of this video. When I watch Jack Sanborn, patience, reading the offensive line, being able to shed a block, running downhill. I saw some plays where he got sideline to sideline. TJ Edwards he's a very good run defender, but Jack Sanborn, I can't say enough good things about him. And maybe I wouldn't even say it's biased because I don't have anything to do with Jack Sanborn, but it's, bringing him in. And even if we want to get heavy, if we want to run 3 linebacker sets, he's going to be on the field a lot. And I think that I don't know how often they would run 3 linebacker sets, but they're going to do it some, be multiple in some aspects. And really with that, now we're saying our 2 linebackers at all times, who kind of want to have on the field are TJ and Tremaine. So Jack Sanborn, a guy who's going to push in training camp, who I want to see what he does, and we're going to see a lot of videos talking about him, particularly because he's that guy. He's that guy, and I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. But really the biggest addition in this group, Tremaine Edmonds, they flushed this defensive roster clean, bringing in a lot of new guys, and I have to love it. I talk about the Mike linebacker, the Will, the Sam, the Tampa 2, good old cover 3, good old man coverage. This is going to be a defense who's simple yet exotic. And we say simple yet exotic, think Dallas Cowboys. Think how they're so simple, yet they're exotic, and nobody really wants to face that defense. Think about San Francisco. They don't do too many exotic things, but also they have the personnel that is better than a lot of teams. But this is the type of thing that we're building towards. And I think that one edge rusher, that one dominant edge rusher, could be that next step into making this a very, very talented defense. Now, getting into the secondary, Jalen Johnson. Let's pay the man. Let's seriously pay the man. I like Jalen Johnson. I mean, I think about what this scheme asks for and what he can do. I don't see no reason why you don't pay him. He's a young guy. It's hard to find corners in the NFL. So, when you got one, don't let him slip. Do not. And I think that now, before he goes out and has a monster of a season, you want to pay this guy. Training camp, I want to see how this plays out with this team. Now, there was some things people talking about. He's not showing up to OTAs, not showing up to this, that, but he was still actively involved, asking questions, being in meetings, talking with the guys. So no worries about Jalen Johnson like I saw with some people. But, beyond that, Kylie Vendor, a guy who got some important snaps last year, Josh Blackwell, and really my guy. I've went to bat for this guy, and you probably, if you don't even know, Tyreek Stevenson. I mean, I can't, another guy who I can't say enough good things about coming out of Miami, a press man corner who's also bigger, long, can do some of those things. But Kyler Gordon, getting back to his natural position in the slot, and he talked about, it was a transition for him, trying to find his way. But I think that now, being more consistent, getting those consistent reps in the slot, he's going to be better this year. We're not going to see the lumps in coverage. We're not going to see the mental lumps like we saw last year, because this year he has a grasp on the system. And also, something I'm going to get into a little bit later, you got one of the best safeties in the NFL coming back to your team. So that's always going to help your secondary. But also, talking about Tyreek Stevenson, getting back to him, I really like what he can bring to the team. A young guy, but I think he's going to play right away, and I think he's going to make an impact right away. Now, we know with rookie corners, they have some troubles, and usually that's getting a bit handsy, working on some technique things, and also mental lapses. But I'm interested to see in training camp, how does he move? And when I say how do you move, I'm not talking about how do you run physically. I'm talking about how do you move as far as preparation, how do you move as far as, getting a grasp on the system. Are you asking as much questions that the coach doesn't even know how to answer some of these questions? Are you just moving with that different mentality? It's all in the mentality for him, because physically I think it's there for him. So I want to see that. Now, Jalen Jones, some other guys we want to see push right here, but it's really those guys, and I talk about Vendor, Blackwell, Johnson, Stevenson, Gordon. Interesting corner group. I think not the most talented on paper, but really some guys who have a lot of talent, some guys who've shown they can play football. And when it comes down to it, we're really going to see in training camp who can make the role to be that guy besides Jalen Johnson. I think Jalen Johnson has solidified himself, but we want to see these guys solidify their self. Kyler Gordon not having the lumps like he had last year. Very solid player, and interested to see him improve this year. Now, this safety room, you got some dogs. You got some guys who can be dime backers. You got some guys who can do a lot of different things in a hybrid 4-2-5 nickel and a hybrid 3-3-5. And I mean, there's a lot of endless possibilities when I look at this secondary, and it all starts and ends with Eddie Jackson. One of the best safeties in the game. He's back. He's off of injury, and I think a lot of people forgot just what Eddie Jackson is. He wasn't a Pro Bowler for no reason. He wasn't that guy and highly touted for no reason. He's going to make an entire shift into this secondary, and it's going to be kind of night and day what we see from this secondary with him, because he can take away a lot of things. He's one of those old school rangy safeties. We look at the safeties nowadays, and a lot of them aren't rangy. We see guys who are more fit. He's just not big enough to play linebacker, so play safety. But he is truly a safety, can guard and cover 3. And we're talking about that middle zone. He's not going to be exploited in that type of coverage. And with Tampa 2 adjusting more to that, we're going to see a lot of that with this scheme. I talked about them. They were one of the teams who ran Tampa 2 a lot more than some other teams, but didn't really have the personnel to really do that last year. But now they have a better personnel to do that. And Jaquan Brisker, one of the best young safeties in the game. He's also versatile, and I want to see what he's going to do this year because I'm expecting another huge leap like what I saw as a rookie. He's just a playmaker, physical, can make plays on the ball. I love Jaquan Brisker, and I mean him, Tariq Stevenson. I see what this team is building. I see it at all 3 levels. Jack Sanborn being a young guy, Noah Sewell. I see what they're trying to do. Kendall Williamson made some plays, had some important snaps last year. Elijah Hicks, Colbert Thomas, and I really talked about it with these guys, with the depth of this team. I think that the biggest thing was the guys who we're going to see as depth this year. That was the important roles last year. They got the important snaps last year. And I don't think people understand how much that speaks volumes and how much that will help the room. Because, yes, understand some people, they're going to lose snaps. You know, guys are coming back. Guys have gotten drafted. Guys have gotten better. But with that being said, we got depth for days. And we know injuries are a part of the game in football. So if we lose a guy, okay, we bringing back up Kendall Williamson. Okay, we're bringing back up Vildor. This is nothing new to those guys because they've been put in that role last year. And they're going to get better. They're going to get some more grasp into the system. So I really like a lot of these things. And, you know, talking about the defense, talking about the offense, Ryan Poles, Matt Eberflus, Alan Williams, all of these guys, I have a good look and a good upside for this team. Like I said, don't want to get too far into, you know, talking about records and things like that. Because I think some people, you know, they see a ceiling. They see some things as far as 10-7. They see being second in the division. Some people see winning the division. Some people see 11-6. Some people see very high things for the Chicago Bears team. And I do think it's a team where the sky is the limit. And I tell you why I say the sky is the limit before I get out of this. It's because of this guy, Justin Fields. We talk about Justin Fields, and there's a lot of things I want to say about Justin Fields, but I think the biggest thing for me is if he takes that entire leap, if DJ Moore is in fact his type of fit, and we've seen through OTAs he's looking like that fit so far, there's not enough to be said about how quarterbacks lead to wins. And I think the defense is good enough that they can also help you win, but they won't lose a game. So if Justin Fields takes that next step, we're going to see an enormous jump from this team. I mean, from a team who won 3 games last year to potentially 9, 10, 11, it's a lot of good things for this team. The Detroit Lions, the Minnesota Vikings, the Green Bay Packers are all rivaling in this division. We know what they are. We know what the weapons are. We know what the opponents are. But now it's time. And we're getting closer to training camp. Just a couple weeks away. My final preview, like I said, this is not my final time talking about this team, but until training camp, we might be pretty silent. Unless something pops up, you know, we're going to come out with the news and talk about it. But I wanted to give this full preview rather than doing a video on a couple guys because I think that it's kind of wanted. It's needed in this community. It's needed for this team. Give these guys that final step of preparation. Some other guys out here have talked about the Chicago Bears. Shout out to Brett Coleman. Shout out to some other guys, that franchise guy. But with that being said, I'm going to leave you with this thought. I'm going to leave you with these thoughts. Or should I better say, you know, 6:13 as I finish recording this video. Great time to be alive. Great time to sing. But it's really a great time to bear down. That's going to do it for today's video. And now, we out.